Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. I am your host today. I'm the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And I have a wonderful pleasure today to introduce our guest. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. We have a clinical psychologist who's going to talk to us today about mental health services in Southeast Asia, and specifically in the Philippines. And I just note quickly that mental health has been a topic of conversation so much in the public eye because of the pandemic and all the stress that people have been under the in the year plus. This has become a topic of conversation by the US government and by ASEAN. So it is certainly fitting for us to have this conversation today. So let me say hello to Celine. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's really a great honor and pleasure.
Thanks so much. And Celine is an alumna of a YSEALI program. YSEALI is the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative. If you're not already a member of YSEALI and you're 18 to 35 and you reside in Southeast Asia, what are you doing? You should already be a member. Join us quickly. We'll have information in the description below. We have lots of programs. It's a wonderful network. I hope you join, and then you can meet people like Celine. So Celine, let's get our conversation started. So on the topic of mental health, I have been watching the Olympics like many people throughout Southeast Asia and America, and it's so exciting to see all these athletes who have trained and trained and trained, and then they accomplish amazing things. But I have to say, when I'm watching them, a lot of times in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, they're under so much pressure. Everyone's watching them. Some people want them to succeed. Some people want them to fail. As a clinical psychologist, are you able to enjoy the Olympics, or do you spend time thinking about what I'm thinking about, the pressure?
Correct. There's so much preparation before that competition that happens every 4 years. And, this is kind of special because there are so many, you need to compete against the backdrop of the pandemic. There's so much uncertainties. The Tokyo Olympics could have been canceled or postponed. There were talks about it before. So as an elite athlete that would want to represent your own country, aside from the preparation, there are these factors that would really challenge your mental health state, Jason. So I'm guessing kudos to the ones who are competing in this Olympics, because aside from the rigorous training, you have to deal with COVID, the travel, and the uncertainty that's never been real as before.
Exactly. Amazing amount of stress. But, whether it's this year or another year, being involved with something as intense as the Olympics requires a lot of focus, and it can be very difficult for the athletes after they go through the Olympics. And that's true for all of us. All of us have, at some moment in our life, we've had to deal with something very stressful, and then we've had to come down from it. I'm thinking about Michael Phelps, who was an incredible swimmer, but then after the Olympics, he acknowledged he went through a time of mental health challenges. It was very difficult for him. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Reminding me of Michael Phelps, looking at him from an outside point of view, he looks so relaxed and calm, only to find out that he was battling, I think, anxiety, depression, and substance abuse, all while training for the Olympics. So imagine and winning it. So it's very interesting. And this is a good declaration that no one is really exempted, despite you're physically strong or you have certain personalities. You could still be vulnerable to experience a mental health challenge.
That's a really, really good point. What you were saying is that you may look strong, but on the inside, you're having a lot of challenges. So what is your general recommendation to people? Let's say that someone really is going through a very stressful period and has a hard time admitting that.
Mhm.
What is your advice for that person?
Really do a deep introspection, like a deep reflection of your current state. What are my emotions? Sometimes you'll be feeling opposite emotions. You could be somehow angry but still hopeful. A lot of emotions are sometimes conflicting when faced in a crisis. But I usually tell my clients or patients, you have to look at mental health as something that's part of your routine to really be purposive in reflecting. It
Mm,
shouldn't really pile up because these stresses, when it's not processed, when it's not addressed, it might lead to a mental health condition. So what we're trying to do here in Mind You, or myself as a practitioner, is to administer preventative therapy. It's really addressing the stressors and not wait for your boiling point or your saturation or your threshold.
mhm. That's an excellent point. And we all should think of mental health the same as every day we make sure we eat some vegetables and we drink water and we think about our body and what we need to put into our body. Our mental health is the same. It's a daily ritual and we have to think about it. Now we
But
were
it's
taught, go ahead. Go
but
ahead.
it's very challenging, Jason, because there's really no barometer for mental health. You can't see your brain. You don't know. Sometimes, am I exceeding already being depressed? It's not
Mhm.
like having fever. You take your temperature. You exactly know what to do. If it's high fever, low fever, and then you rest or take medications. With mental health, if you are not a psychologist or psychiatrist, it's kind of tricky. Like, okay,
Mm,
where am I right now? Am I okay? I'm not okay. So in that sense, things that we don't see is sometimes a challenge for us, and that goes with our mental health state.
that's a good point. Now, let's say that, well, we all have loved ones, we have family, we have friends. What are some signs that we can look for that indicate that we might need to talk to that person and say, are you okay? Maybe you need to talk to someone. What are some signs that we should look for in our peers and the people we love?
Mhm. In principle, any change in behavior that is an indication that the person is in a crisis or is probably
Mhm.
having a challenge on their own. So, for example, this person is usually awake at 7 a.m., but you see them just sleeping the whole day or not sleeping at all. How are their eating habits? It's as basic as their daily routine. So, as a psychologist, we look at the 4Ds actually, to indicate the severity of a condition. And that's distress. How stressed is this person? There's also dysfunction. Could they still work? How is their routine? Is it disrupted? Are there deviant behaviors? That's the third D. Like hygiene, for example, is neglected. Um, and of course, danger. Okay, so if there's threat to life or self-harm tendencies, then those are the signals that a person might be experiencing a challenge.
Mhm. Yeah, you brought up a really good point because sure, we quickly notice if someone is saying odd things about suicide or acting very unusual or talking about threats. But you're right, sometimes just subtle changes in a typical routine could be a sign. And it's things that we shouldn't just let pass. We should ask. We should ask questions. We should be there. It's a very good point. Now, in Filipino culture and Southeast Asian culture, what kind of stigmas still exist that prevent people from seeking help?
Okay. First of all, here in the Philippines, I could speak for the Philippines first. We have somehow a culture of roles in society or gender roles. So if you're a man, uh, it's hard. Let's say it's not somehow. they refrain you from crying. They say, hey, you're weak, don't cry. Okay, or man up, don't act like a girl. We hear those comments until the present time here in the Philippines. But although it's changing already, this culture has been there for generations. And this is the right time and place to have a paradigm shift when it comes to mental health. So labeling is still present in the form of humor or forms in conversations here, and that refrains a person to open up and allow themselves to be vulnerable. They think it's not a safe place. So here in the Philippines also, when you're playing a role, for example, you're the breadwinner, you're the eldest, you're the father of the family, or you're the mother of the family, and people are used to getting energy from you, or they depend on you. When you yourself would need help, sometimes it's hard to admit it, because, oh, I can't show them that I'm being vulnerable because I'm the man of the house, or I'm the mother. I need to take care of my children first before, and I'm the last priority. So we have those concepts here in the country that somehow hinders acknowledgement that, hey, I need someone to talk to, or I'm not really okay.
Mhm. Absolutely. Cultural norms always get in the way. And speaking of cultural norms, I know we have a lot of members of the audience throughout Southeast Asia. Perhaps you have thoughts about mental health services in your own country or the Philippines. Please feel welcome to join us, add any questions. I can always fill up the time with plenty of my own questions, but I love it so when the audience joins us. So, given some of the stigmas about mental health and some of the barriers, what inspired you to go into this occupation?
I'm actually a late bloomer in the field of psychology. I used to be an educator for around 15 years,
Mhm.
then shifted to this profession because I feel that there's a great need to serve more people beyond the realms of the educational institution that I'm in. So I studied psychology, got inspired by it, and then there goes this rigorous board exams. You have to pass that to be able to practice being a clinical psychologist in the country. In the Philippines, there's, I don't know the exact number, but it's just a little over 1,400 in the Philippines. 1,400 psychologists would give
Woo.
a ratio of, we're like 110 million in population. So we're like uh, unicorns here, or you need to find us like Pokemons. I don't know, but it's hard. There's a gap between accessibility. So
Mhm.
the two major concerns here to access mental health help is, number one, the price point. Um,
Mhm.
well, if you're earning a certain amount, it's really hard to book a session with a psychologist because it's expensive, and it's not covered by certain HMOs, for example. So instead of course accessing a psychologist, you have to cover expenses for food and shelter and the basics, just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And seeking help from a psychologist would be one of the least prioritized somehow need. The price point is one, and second is the stigma, which we are trying to address. So hopefully, with the pandemic, it actually gave way to gain more awareness and acceptance. Um, so actually, the World Health Organization defined overall health using three components. That is the physical health, which we are all conscious of. That's why we try to work out, we mind what we're eating. One is social well being. The Philippines is very rich with relationships. It's a really integral part of life. So we try to keep in touch with family in general and friends. But the last one to really define overall health is mental health. And that's what we're trying to address here. The stigma also, wherein in the Philippine data, schizophrenia is the one that resonates a lot pre-pandemic. So you don't want to be associated with mental health because mental health is associated with schizophrenia, because that's the number one mental health condition in the country. And you don't want to be associated like going to a psychologist, but what? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I have schizophrenia? I It's really, sorry, that's not for me. So, because that's the number one statistics that we could track in the country, then there goes more stigmas surrounding mental health. Because the statistics pre-pandemic is always related to schizophrenia. Now that the pandemic has happened, now we could track, okay, mental health problems is common, and now we could keep track that as of last month, the Department of Health declared that around 17 million Filipinos live with depression. That is compared to 3.3 million pre-pandemic. So now we could see statistics, and now it gives enlightenment that, okay, it's not just schizophrenia here. Okay, a common person could also acquire depression, for example. Hence, this open up doors to, oh, okay, it's not just people with schizophrenia, but there are other mental health conditions as well.
Mhm. Absolutely. Plenty of mental health challenges are completely unrelated to schizophrenia.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And clearly, you need more than 1,400 licensed psychotherapists. So, what do you think is the solution? How would the Philippines and Southeast Asia get more psychotherapists for their communities? What's the solution in the Philippines?
That's really a good question, which actually there's another hurdle because of the pandemic. The board exams has been postponed for 2 years already. So there
Uh,
are no new psychologists
mm,
from the last one was the 2019 batch. So
mm,
for 2 years already, there are no new psychologists, which gives us more challenges. Like we're very spread thinly, and there's really a great demand. To address the shortage, we encourage everyone to take up psychology. I mean, there's a real profession with being a psychologist.
mm,
And that's something that's a realization now. It's really a good career track in terms of, for example, financial value. There is when it comes to growth, when it comes to nation building, to addressing societal concerns. I think it's very, very fulfilling. So it's really going down to the grassroots level in the education system and promoting psychology as a real profession that would help grow the interest.
mm. Yes, and there also has to be an understanding in businesses with governments that if people are depressed, then they're less able to work, they'll be less efficient, they'll be less productive. So there's a financial benefit to people having access to that mental health assistance that they need. It all goes together. Wow.
That's
Hmm.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, now I mentioned at the top of the program that you were a YSEALI program alumna. So please tell our audience about your YSEALI program.
Yeah, it was a life-changing experience for me. So I was selected as one of the, I think, 16 leader mentors um, to handle different participants. It was actually held in Jakarta. So it was a regional workshop on ocean conservation. It's really okay. How come a psychologist or someone landed there? Because I was also doing beach soccer in the country. That's one of the advocacies. So we were doing a lot of marketing campaigns and events related to coastal cleanup, and I was selected to handle the topic relating to promoting like campaigns to be able to push projects for YCL Oceans. And it's still, right now I'm still in touch with some of the participants and some other leader mentors. So the YCL actually gave us an opportunity to be connected to solve an issue surrounding the ASEAN. And for me, it gave also confidence, and like you could see um, the global picture. No, it's not just in the country, but you share a lot of commonality. So that was a great experience for me.
Well, absolutely. And there are different ways that that experience is related to what you do now. You mentioned that you were focused on creating a campaign. A lot of people don't realize that in the profession of psychotherapy, you have to market yourself. You're a business person. You have to get your name out there. You have to find clients. You have to do all the elements related to running a business. Now, you're a senior psychologist for something called Mind You. If you would tell our audience a little bit, what is Mind You?
Okay. Mind You is a mental health company which have a strong technology background. So we have a vision to reach out 1 million Filipinos by 2025 for them to have access to mental health care, which is very scarce in the country. So to address the two barriers that I've said a while ago, it's the price point and the stigma. So what we do, we go straight to the employers and talk to them and say, hey, would you want to invest on the mental health of your people? Because this is how productivity works. This is your ROI. And since a lot of Filipinos could not afford psychology sessions, then you are bridging the gap by giving this accessibility. So a lot of our clients believe in that, and we give a lot of scientific data-driven reports to see progress for their employees. And so far, we're like across at least 15 industries now, considering we're just operating for just a year. So I'm very proud to be part of Mind You because personally, as a psychologist, if I do my private practice, I could only reach one person, 5 people a day. But with Mind You, that's why I'm on board. Mental health help would reach more Filipinos because we're looking at companies and organizations, and that would have a ripple effect when it comes to bridging the gap between mental health care. Because psychologists were not present in a lot of hospitals. We're also not visible on some areas. So even if you want to look for a psychologist, it's kind of hard here in the Philippines. It's a challenge. So right now, when Mind You was born, then okay, when they look it up in the internet, okay, there's someone I could go to. The National Center for Mental Health, that's the topmost government arm that helps out. But of course, with 110 million Filipinos, there's only much they could do. So we need private institutions to be able to augment the great need and demand for mental health access.
Absolutely, and that's a good way to do it, to form partnerships with other entities such as businesses to promote these important services. Now, what happens when a business says to you, psychotherapy? Couldn't the person just go to a priest or an imam or a rabbi? Doesn't religion already take care of this?
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond?
That's really a good analogy, right? And that really happens. We are I would say highly spiritual as a country, and I could still see people giving advice that okay, just sleep it off, just eat, and then tomorrow you'll be fine, or just pray. Although I believe that these mechanisms would help. If praying to God would give you hope, would give you serenity, would give you peace, then that's good, and we should continue those healthy communication with God and with other modalities, or with imam or rabbi. Um, However, if a person is really, for example, clinically depressed, they need medications. They need help as well, aside from the existing coping mechanisms. So for us psychologists, we always look at the biopsychosocial model. So all of the triggers of a mental health condition would go just between those three. So when I say biological, is it your hormones? Is it your blood chemistry? Is it your neurotransmitters? Were you able to somehow inherit the genes for schizophrenia, for example? It doesn't make you one, but you're more vulnerable to it. And the more you're aware of it, then you could address it with medications. If your triggers are coming from the environment, for example, is your do you live in a toxic environment? Are there a lot of people that creates those stressors? Or if it's something psychological, like are you starting to develop ruminating thoughts about fear of the future? So any of those triggers would depend a certain level of mental health help. So whether that be going to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or enhancing your coping skills, such as creating your own emotional support system or being closer to God, then as a psychologist, I could run it with that client to be able to cover all facets.
Mhm. And sometimes there are just certain issues where people need to consult with someone who's had a different experience. I was just thinking a lot of women, for example, they give birth and there's a lot of hormonal imbalances going on, and sometimes women experience something called postpartum depression. So if they're going to their husband and they're going to their priest, they may need to hear a third voice. They may need to go to someone who's a maternity specialist or a psychotherapist who focuses on those issues. So
That's a great
whenever we have
analogy.
a problem, sometimes we need a second or a third opinion.
Mhm. That's a great analogy. It's like if you have a broken foot, you go to a orthopedic surgeon or something. Not you don't go to a dentist. So using that analogy that you gave, we could look at it that way. It's not an insult to the religious beliefs, or it's not really superseding certain cultural factors, but it's really just looking at, okay, I have this concern. Where could I really go to?
Mhm. And in many cases, if the religious leader is well educated and aware, then he, or depending on the religion, she will say, okay, now you really do need to see a specialist on this particular topic. I can help you with certain elements, but we need to bring more specialists into this conversation. So, and as you said, sometimes depression can be handled with conversation and love and support, but sometimes it's a little beyond that, and someone may need to seek some assistance, some temporary assistance of psychiatric drugs. It all depends on the individual, and each situation has to be assessed. But sometimes you really do need to seek a deeper level of assistance.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. I hope this is a way for us to psychoeducate people about seeking professional help. It doesn't mean that you're already crazy or you're already having clinical depression. We have to look at it as preventative healthcare. Like before going to that breaking point, I should address these stressors already.
Mm-hmm. I once volunteered on a crisis helpline. There's a 24/7 phone number that people could call. And we listened to all kinds of matters. Definitely not only schizophrenia. Lots of people go through lots of crises and they need help and they need to reach out, because we sometimes people really don't have a peer or someone that they can turn to. And sometimes they need a psychologist. You know?
Mhm.
So a lot of people are going through the stress of COVID. They've lost jobs. They've lost loved ones. What is your recommendation for people who are trying to handle all this stress and stay focused? What are some useful tips that you give to people?
Mhm. With the COVID-19, it gets closer to home. Last year, we experienced, for example, deaths, but from people that we don't personally know. And 1 year after, it gets closer to home. We know this person, we're related to this person. And of course, that gives COVID-19 a face, no? And in relation to that comes the grieving process. It's important to go through the grieving process if you are experiencing grief. No, it's also not healthy to suppress it and say I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. but in reality, you're hurting. So you have to go through that grief process on your own time and pace, and really acknowledge that, okay, I've lost someone, for example. So suppression won't help. It will just come in a later time. It's gonna manifest in a future time, or it you might displace it to other people. So whatever you're feeling right now is valid, okay? Because that's your narrative, that's your reality. So no one could say that, that's petty or that's small. Okay? So if you are feeling certain emotions, try to try to go through it. Um, but at the end of it, get a positive emotion. Okay? Because if we are also used to negative thinking, and our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all related, if it's all negative, then we will be very good at it. For example, if I keep on worrying, then I'll be very, very good in worrying. If we study, for example, math, then you'll be good at math. But if we also study our emotions and acknowledging it, that would already let the brain process it and hopefully address it, because we're conscious that we're experiencing such thoughts which are related to our emotions. So my advice with people who are struggling right now, it's important to know what you're feeling and then rank them. Okay, how hopeless am I? How sad am I? How grateful am I? Now when you rank those emotions, then you could put in effort to address the topmost emotion that you're feeling, because sometimes it's overwhelming. It's all multiple emotions all at once, and sometimes we lose sight of ourselves. But by knowing emotions and ranking it, okay, it would give an idea that, okay, I'm feeling restless right now. Then you could backtrack. Why am I restless? And what could I do about it? So here in the Philippines, we don't studying emotions is not on the school curriculum per se. So we're not used to sometimes being aware of what we feel and then acknowledging it. And I'm not sure if it's a cultural thing, but I hope this changes with the pandemic that happened. For example, now we're faced with, okay, at this age I'm so young, then the reality of death occurs because you are not promised of tomorrow because of the deaths all over. So it hinders a certain lifespan that you should go through. It cuts to the reality that, okay, things are uncertain and it gives me anxiety. Things are uncertain and this depresses me. So we also need to enhance our coping skills and mechanisms. Here in the Philippines, Jason, we went back to during the pandemic, this has been popularized. We got back to taking care of plants, and there's a term there, plantito, plantita. It's like taking care of plants as a hobby, which pre-pandemic is not a thing. So because of new routines and new ways to cope, we were able to survive somehow until now by doing things within our reach, what is realistic. So there, we have a lot of plants. I don't take care of plants before, but now I do. And okay, it's soothing. So maybe find a way in this new normal to find yourself on how to cope as well. If I make sense.
Yes, and you touched on the complexity of being human, and that is we need to give ourselves space and an opportunity to feel deep emotions. As you said, sometimes you have to go through the grief. So if you lost a loved one, you have to feel that. You have to let yourself express that sadness in whatever way makes sense to you. So you want to feel that. If you're not feeling that, there may be something wrong. But you don't want to dwell in that feeling and get lost in that feeling and let that feeling control you. So it's this tricky finding that balance. And that's what makes being a psychotherapist or psychologist so fascinating, is you're helping people find that balance. And just to add a question about finding that balance, we received a question from our audience from Sarah, who asked, during this pandemic, there are a lot of people who feel depressed and stressed, but maybe the services are limited because there's the quarantine or health protocols. So What kind of online consultations does either Mind You offer, or what exists that people should look for?
Mhm. Well, there are a lot of telepsychology clinics that's popping around. We're trying to deviate from the face-to-face to telepsychology. So if you look at a lot of social media sites, you would see that there are clinics. You could also check Mind You's website, and we're also attached with Health Now, the Health Now app by Ayala. So you could download that on your mobile devices and book a session. It's very important to be visible. Um, so yes, there are a lot of limitations now with the Delta variant that's happening here in the country as well. So there are more restrictions. So what we try to do is to reach out to people. So we're very visible in social media sites. Um, so hopefully, Sarah, you'll be able to check us out. And thank you for that question.
There are definitely options, definitely options. So we're almost running out of time, and I just want to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you a couple lighter questions. So let's say in 2022, COVID restrictions have been lifted and you can suddenly travel to the United States. What's a city that you would like to visit?
I would like to visit the museums in Washington, probably. I heard you could spend like days and to check out all those stuff, and it's all right beside each other. I'd like to learn about culture, about history firsthand, and see artifacts. That would be very interesting to spend. I think a day isn't enough. I heard. So no, it won't. Okay. So there, that would be something interesting for me. Um, because I like history and culture.
Well, I've
I
always
hope
said
one day.
sometimes you only have one day, sometimes you have 3 days, sometimes you have five. Just enjoy what you have and take in as much as you could.
Hmm.
So if I had a day to go to the Philippines, where is somewhere that I should visit?
Okay, now that's a hard topic. If you like the beach, there are so many so many places to go to. Do you like the beach, or do you like old houses and architecture?
I love architecture. What's a good
Oh, you do.
architecture spot?
Well, just around here in Manila, there are a lot of because we were colonized by the Spanish by around 300 years or something. So there are still, if you like history as well, there's a lot of places in Manila area to go through that's beside each other. The National Museum is there. So one day, hopefully, when you get back here, I could give you a tour and let you ride the Kalesa, and let you eat street food. So that would be interesting.
And of course, the United States has a very special history with the Philippines as
Of
well.
course. Yes,
So
definitely.
that too.
Mhm.
So my last question for you, if you could meet a famous psychotherapist, either living or dead, and there's no linguistic barrier, you're able to speak the same language,
How is that?
who would you pick to talk to?
This is an interesting question because Albert Bandura, if just died yesterday. I
Oh,
Yeah. So so this is very interesting because he was the one who did the Bobo doll experiment with children. So it's really it's really interesting and timely because I think he recently died yesterday. So
Alex
with the
Alex Bandura?
Albert Albert,
Al-
yeah,
Albert Bandura.
he's actually Canadian born but American psychologist. Mhm.
Mhm.
So he did a social cognitive theory for modeling. Like there was a Bobo doll, and then children were exposed to that, and then they were able to mimic certain behaviors because of that. So it gave rise to social cognitive cognitive theory regarding how people model do their models. Yeah. So it depends. So it's very important. So when you're faced with children, what kind of models will you expose your children to, for example? Yeah.
Fascinating.
So
Well,
definitely,
we'll say that we did this show in honor of Alex then, in honor of his death and
I'll
his life's work, and lots of wonderful, wonderful psychotherapists and psychologists and mental health workers who have really, really tried to help people. And that's what you're doing. That's what motivates you professionally. You want to help people. And I applaud you for what you're doing. It's a hard job, it's a stressful job, but you really are helping people. So thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today. What a wonderful conversation. We'll have to end the show there. So thank you so much to our audience, whether you were live or you found us later. Thank you so much for joining us. And until the next time, bye-bye.
Bye.